On Monday morning, we walked into the school building at the beginning of the day and found that it was 55 degrees in there. Boiler wasn't working. So we sprang into action. We called the HVAC company right away. We started making plans to move all of the classes to church as if it were a one-room schoolhouse, little kids over there, middle school over here, seeing if we could spread them out and keep them warm. But when the HVAC people got there, they found that it was simple. Pilot light blew out. Don't know why, but as soon as it was relit, everything was fine. An hour later, it was as if it never happened. It reminded me of the gospel today. I thought of it immediately when I heard Jesus say, "Be vigilant. Don't let your pilot light go out." It's easy to not notice that you've let it go out. If you let that light go out, how would you ever make it through the winter? You've got to guard that flame and keep it burning for the good of everybody. When I think of pilot lights, I don't think there's anything that a pilot light better exemplifies than prayer. Our prayer is our pilot light. It truly is. Our whole HVAC system depends on it. It is the flame that has to be tended. Our prayer life is to the way we live, the way our pituitary gland is to our body, the way the timing belt is to our car. If it falls away, nothing else is going to work right. It's the glue that keeps everything together. The readings are clearly about tribulations and about navigating life in hard times. And everyone's life has tribulations. Hard times come to everybody. And sometimes we have a hard time as a whole people, as a society. We're going through a hard time. And when that happens, we often ask ourselves, why? Why is this happening? Why is this going on? And we never hear a good answer for that. If we're honest, we're not going to understand until heaven why things happen as they do. We spend a lot of energy hoping we can figure out the why, but no one has a satisfying answer to why. That's apparently not for us to understand this side of heaven. But someone gave me a plaque that is in a prominent place in my office, and so often people comment on it. It says, "God doesn't give us what we can handle. God helps us handle what we are given." And I love that one author says, don't worry about God putting you to the test. God is too busy loving you and supporting you to test you. We could never have gotten as far as we are without the love and the help of God. And God's fastest way of helping us, God's fastest delivery system for help is prayer. Prayer is the thing that delivers God's help right to our door. My grandparents, when I was a kid, would watch old black and white reruns of things. And the only thing I remember them watching in color was the Lawrence Welk Show. But one of the fun black and white shows they introduced me to was the Burns and Allen Show. There might be some people here who know what that is. A lot of us know who George Burns is, but his wife, who died long before he did, was Gracie Allen. And they had this comedy show, and they would do these little skits. It was like a sitcom, and she was a ditz. That was the part she played. She was ditzy. So there's one episode I remember where she called an electrician, and this made a huge impact on me as a kid. And she said to the electrician, "Please help me, my clock isn't keeping the time." And so he looked, and he said, "Ma'am, I see the problem right here. Do you realize this clock is not plugged in?" And she goes, "Oh, I know it isn't plugged in. I only plug it in when I want to see what time it is." As a kid, I thought that was hilarious. But I will say it's a perfect analogy for prayer. That's how a lot of us treat prayer. I plug in when I need something. When I'm really struggling, then I plug in. But God has so much more to offer us, so much more help, so much more support, so much more peace than we can get if we just plug in during the worst times. We shouldn't be bringing God just the worst stuff from when everything's falling apart. We should be bringing everything to God. The way we should know if we should be praying about something is if it's starting to become a burden to us. If what we're feeling feels like a burden, we should be bringing that to God. Whatever is burdensome. And there's a woman who lived through the Holocaust who said famously, if it's too small to be turned into a prayer, it's too small to be made into a burden either. If you wouldn't pray about it, then don't make a burden out of it. And if it's feeling like a burden, then pray about it. Prayer can help us when nothing else can, in a way that we really need to be able to trust and rely on. One of our younger parishioners recently got her pilot's license, something I think is just so cool. Can you imagine what it's like to go for that flight test? But one of the things that's a big deal as a part of that is the instrument test portion. You have to be able to learn how to use instruments and not just trust your eyes. Because it's one thing to fly on a clear day when the sun is behind you, but how are you supposed to fly at night in the fog, in a lightning storm? Sometimes pilots cannot land using their eyes. They have to use their instruments. They have no idea where they are in the sky, but their instruments do. And so they can actually rely on those readings to land on instruments alone. They're not going to see the ground until the wheels are actually on it. And that's how our life is so much of the time. We don't know where we are in the midst of a struggle. We have no idea which way is up and which way is down. When times are good, coming to Mass once a week might do the trick. Grace before meals, it's good. During the easier times of life, that could be sufficient. When the skies are clear and the wind is at our back. But when it's dark, when we're in the midst of a fog, when there is lightning all around us, we need spiritual radar. And that's how prayer works. That's what it is. It allows us to use our instruments when our senses aren't working at all. So this week we are being asked, as we begin a new year, as we begin the lead up to Christmas, what is your prayer routine? How would you describe it? Is it something you can put into words? Every morning I have this as my prayer routine. Or every evening before I go to bed, I do this. Or I have this thing that I do this one day a week. Is there something that you would say? If you don't have a prayer routine that you could put into words, this is a great time of year to begin one. This really is. Advent is perfect because it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it can really allow us to try something for 4 weeks that we wouldn't have the courage to try indefinitely. So many of you may have heard that the way that I started praying every day was during Advent years ago, and it was through a method called the 3 C's. The 3 C's are coffee, candle, and Christ. And it works like this, and it's for anybody. All you do is set your alarm 5 minutes earlier than you would normally get up. Not an hour, not half an hour, not 15 minutes, 5 minutes. And then you go and make your favorite morning beverage, coffee, tea, cocoa, whatever it is. And then you go somewhere and you sip the coffee in front of a lit candle in the darkness of a December morning. That's it. If you have an Advent wreath, you light the candle on the Advent wreath, you sit there for 5 minutes, you sip the beverage, and when 5 minutes is up, you blow out the candle and you go into the day. You don't have to have a prayer routine as part of that. You don't have to say memorized prayers. You could if you wanted to. But the light shining in the darkness is really the work. It's sitting with the light shining in the darkness and letting that light talk to us about God. So maybe that's something you want to try. Or maybe there's something else that's been on your mind. Maybe you've received Give Us This Day or the Magnificat or some other weekly devotional. You got a complimentary copy once, or somebody sent you one in the mail, or somebody had an extra, and you thought, oh, I should do that, but you haven't done it yet. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the time to do something that will help you to keep your antenna up, to keep your spiritual radar engaged, so that whatever's a burden in your life is something you've brought to God. Because prayer definitely changes things. And the thing it changes most effectively is the most important thing of all. It changes us.